Welcome to your personalized deep dive.
Oh, yeah.
Today, we're going to uncover the remarkable life of Ganeshyam,
Okay.
a figure in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition.
Right.
Now, if you're not familiar, the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition is a branch of Hinduism
Right.
centered on the devotion to Krishna.
Yep.
Think beautiful temples, vibrant festivals, and a deep emphasis on love as the path to the divine.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about Ganeshyam
Yeah.
is that he exemplifies this devotion in such a profound way,
Right.
even though he lived a seemingly simple life.
Yeah?
Our sources today are quite varied.
Okay.
We've got excerpts from a book,
Okay.
a post from a devotee forum discussing Ganeshyam's life,
Okay.
and even an analysis of a controversial religious leader's text
Wow.
that will offer a contrasting perspective.
Yeah, the goal is to understand the nature of selfless devotion
Right.
and its impact through the lens of Ganeshyam's story. And this contrasting viewpoint will help us do just that.
Yeah.
But first, who was Ganeshyam?
Wow.
We learned he came from a wealthy family, but gave it all up
Yes.
for a life of poverty and service in Vrindavan. That's a huge shift.
Yeah, it is.
What led him to make such a choice?
Well, the source material describes how, during a pilgrimage to Vrindavan,
Okay.
which is considered a holy city for devotees of Krishna,
Mm-hmm.
Ganeshyam just fell in love with the place and with the deities Radha Krishna.
Okay.
In the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition,
Right.
Radha Krishna are seen as the divine couple, representing the ultimate love between God and the soul.
Right.
So Ganeshyam's heart was deeply touched by this experience.
And it's that love that led him to completely change his life.
Yes.
He chose to stay in Vrindavan and dedicate himself to serving the deities.
Yes.
Even if it meant being estranged from his family and living with very little.
It's a radical decision.
Yeah.
And one that might raise some questions for you, the listener. Was Ganeshyam neglecting his responsibilities?
Or was this a profound act of faith and surrender?
Right.
It's interesting to consider the balance between personal duties
Yeah.
and spiritual pursuits.
Definitely something to ponder.
Yeah.
So Ganeshyam ends up with these beautiful deities of Radha Krishna, known as Gopijwana Vallabha.
Yes.
And they become the center of his life.
Right.
He pours all his energy into taking care of them.
Yes.
Even though he has no money and often no proper shelter.
It's here that we see the true depth of Ganeshyam's devotion.
Wow.
He literally survives on whatever meager alms he receives.
Wow.
Sometimes sleeping on the streets.
Oh, my goodness.
But the source material emphasizes his constant joy.
Really?
His unwavering focus on serving the deities and anyone who came to visit them.
So it's like his poverty, which many would see as a hardship, was almost irrelevant to him.
Yes.
His fulfillment came from something else entirely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where we start to see the contrast.
Yeah. With more materialistic values, Ganeshyam's story invites us to question what truly brings happiness and fulfillment.
Yeah.
Is it outward success or inner contentment derived from service and devotion?
It's a question that resonates with many of us, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we live in a world
Yeah.
that often equates success with material wealth and achievement.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why Ganeshyam's story is so thought-provoking.
Yeah.
It offers a different perspective on what a successful and fulfilling life can look like.
Now, we get a deeper glimpse into Ganeshyam's world
Okay.
through the eyes of another devotee, Richard,
Right.
a Westerner who befriends him.
Yeah.
Richard's firsthand account really brings Ganeshyam's character to life.
Yes. Richard becomes our window into understanding Ganeshyam's extraordinary selflessness.
Okay.
There's a story where Richard visits Ganeshyam on a freezing winter night,
Okay.
and Ganeshyam insists on giving Richard his only blanket. Richard, of course, tries to refuse,
Yeah.
but Ganeshyam is adamant.
It's a touching gesture,
Yeah.
but it also makes you wonder, was Ganeshyam being reckless?
Right.
Where does self-care fit into this picture of selfless devotion?
Right.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, it's a valid question.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the source material doesn't delve into that aspect.
Okay.
But perhaps Ganeshyam saw caring for others as a form of self-care,
Okay.
a way of expressing his love for the divine.
I see.
It's a different worldview.
Yeah.
One that challenges our conventional notions of what it means to take care of oneself.
It definitely invites us to expand our perspective.
Yes, it does.
And this theme of selflessness continues in another story.
Okay.
Richard mentions how he would strategically avoid visiting Ganeshyam around lunchtime. Why do you think that was?
Well, because Ganeshyam would insist on giving Richard all his prasadam, even if it meant he had nothing left for himself.
Oh, my goodness.
Prasadam, by the way, refers to food
Right.
that's been offered to the deities and is considered sacred in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition.
So it's not just about sharing food.
Right.
It's about sharing something that holds deep spiritual significance.
Precisely. And this highlights another aspect of Ganeshyam's character.
Okay.
He wasn't just generous, he was profoundly humble.
Yeah.
He saw everyone as a guest of the deities, deserving of the best he could offer, even if it meant sacrificing his own needs.
That's a powerful example of the concept of dasa, dasa anudasa.
Yes.
The servant of the servant of the servant, which emphasizes humility and service in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition.
Yes.
But it also raises the question, where do we draw the line?
Yeah.
Is it healthy to constantly put others' needs before our own?
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? And perhaps that's one of the challenges Ganeshyam's story presents to us. How do we cultivate this spirit of selfless service without neglecting our own well-being?
It's a question worth pondering.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about another incident that really reveals the depth of Ganeshyam's connection to service.
Right.
Richard describes trying to help Ganeshyam carry water for the deities. And Ganeshyam becomes quite emotional, pleading with Richard not to take that service away from him.
This wasn't about pride or ownership. It was about the profound connection Ganeshyam felt to the act of service itself. He saw it as an expression of love for the divine, something deeply personal and sacred.
It makes you realize that even the simplest act, when performed with devotion, can become a spiritual practice.
And it challenges our modern-day obsession with efficiency and productivity. Ganeshyam's story reminds us that sometimes it's the slow, deliberate acts of service performed with love and attention that truly nourish our souls.
So we're seeing how Ganeshyam, through his actions and his unwavering spirit, embodies a profound sense of selfless devotion.
Yes.
But how does this compare with other perspectives on spiritual leadership? That's something we'll explore as we continue our deep dive.
And as we delve further, consider this. Does Ganeshyam's example resonate with your own understanding of devotion and service? What lessons, if any, can you draw from his life and apply to your own?
You know, Ganeshyam's story is really making me think about my own priorities. It's easy to get caught up in the hustle and bustle of life, but his focus on service and devotion, even in the midst of poverty, is a powerful reminder that there's more to life than just material success.
It's a perspective shift, for sure.
Yeah.
And it brings us to another interesting aspect of Ganeshyam's life. The source material describes his deep longing to see Govardhana Hill. You know, in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, Govardhana Hill holds a special significance. It's believed that Krishna lifted this entire hill to protect the villagers from a torrential downpour.
So it's not just a physical landmark. It represents Krishna's divine power and compassion.
Exactly. And Ganeshyam, despite living in Vrindavan for years, was never able to physically visit Govardhana Hill due to his poverty and failing health. Yet he spoke about it with such longing, such spiritual yearning. It wasn't about sightseeing. It was about connecting with the divine presence associated with that sacred place.
It speaks to the depth of his inner world, wouldn't you say?
It really does.
Despite his outward circumstances, he was deeply connected to the spiritual realm.
It's a reminder that true devotion isn't bound by physical limitations. Ganeshyam's heart was already at Govardhana Hill, even if his body couldn't be.
And this brings us to a turning point in his story. We learn that as Ganeshyam's health deteriorated, he clung to life for one heartbreaking reason.
Yes. The source material reviews that his primary concern wasn't his own suffering. It was the well-being of his beloved deities, Gopijana Vallabha. He couldn't bear the thought of them being neglected or abandoned.
This level of selflessness is just mind-boggling.
I know.
His love for the divine transcended even his own need for peace and release from suffering.
It's a profound testament to the power of pure bhakti,
Right.
of love that knows no bounds.
Yeah.
And thankfully, his concern for his deities didn't go unanswered.
Right. A newly built temple was in need of deities.
Yes.
And Gopidranavlabha were moved there.
Right.
Ensuring their continued worship.
And it's only after Ganeshyam knew his deities were safe and cared for that he peacefully passed away.
It's both tragic and beautiful, wouldn't you say?
It is.
Tragic, because he suffered so much.
Right.
Yet beautiful, because his devotion was so pure and unwavering.
His life becomes a powerful example of the idea that true fulfillment doesn't come from clinging to our own desires or comfort, but from surrendering to a higher purpose, to something greater than ourselves.
But that brings us to a question that's been lingering in my mind.
Okay.
We've been talking about Ganeshyam's selflessness and devotion. But haven't we also seen instances where his choices led to hardship, even suffering?
Right.
Where do we draw the line between selfless service and self-preservation?
It's a crucial question, and one that the source material doesn't explicitly address. But perhaps it's not about finding a rigid line, but about seeking balance.
Right.
About recognizing that caring for ourselves allows us to better care for others.
It's a point worth reflecting on.
Yeah.
Now, as we've explored Ganeshyam's story, we've also touched upon the importance of discernment.
Yeah.
Especially in the realm of spiritual seeking.
Right. And this is where the analysis of Chris Butler's text comes in.
Okay.
It provides a starkly different perspective on spiritual leadership.
Right.
One that raises concerns about manipulation and exploitation.
Some of the criticisms leveled against Butler in this analysis are pretty serious.
Yeah.
Things like promoting fear and artificial humility.
Right.
And even exploiting followers for personal gain. This is a far cry from Ganeshyam's genuine humility and selfless service.
It highlights the shadow side of spiritual seeking.
Yeah.
Not all paths are created equal, and not all teachers have pure intentions.
Ganeshyam's life, in many ways, becomes a model for what authentic spiritual leadership can look like.
Exactly.
He wasn't seeking power or control.
Right.
He was simply a humble servant of the divine.
And this contrast begs the question, how can we, as seekers, develop the discernment to distinguish between genuine spiritual guidance and potentially harmful practices?
Well, one source we have offers some guidance.
Okay.
It talks about distinguishing true Vaishnavas or devotees of Krishna from those who might be masquerading as spiritual authorities for their own selfish ends.
The material emphasizes the importance of looking beyond outward appearances and focusing on qualities like humility, compassion, genuine concern for others, and a lack of desire for personal gain. These are the hallmarks of true spiritual leadership.
Makes you think about those different governing systems within religious groups. Some, like the one Ganeshyam was a part of, seem to emphasize selfless service, while others might be more prone to hierarchies and power structures that can be easily abused.
It's a spectrum, and it's important to be aware of the potential pitfalls. Blind faith can be dangerous. And it's crucial to approach any spiritual path or teacher with a healthy dose of critical thinking and discernment.
So Ganeshyam's story, while incredibly inspiring, also serves as a cautionary tale. It reminds us to be vigilant, to ask questions, and to trust our intuition when something doesn't feel right.
It's a delicate balance between openness and discernment. We want to be open to learning and growing spiritually, but we also need to protect ourselves from potential harm.
Now, as we move towards the final part of our deep dive, we invite you, the listener, to reflect on these contrasting perspectives. What resonates with you most? What criteria do you use to evaluate different spiritual paths or leaders? And how can Ganeshyam's example, both in its positive and potentially negative aspects, guide you on your own spiritual journey?
As we wrap up our deep dive into Ganeshyam's life,
I'm struck by the layers of meaning we've uncovered. On the surface, it's a simple story of a man who gave up everything for his faith. But looking deeper, it raises so many questions about devotion, sacrifice, and even the potential pitfalls of spiritual seeking.
It's a testament to the power of a single life.
Right.
To make us rethink our own assumptions, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Ganesham's unwavering devotion challenges us to consider what truly matters.
Yeah.
Was he misguided in his choices?
Yeah.
Or did he achieve a level of fulfillment that most of us only dream of?
And that question leads us back to Radhanath Swami's tribute to Ganeshyam.
Okay.
Remember, he said that it's through the kindness of pure devotees like Ganeshyam that we can understand Krishna. It's like Ganeshyam's life becomes a lens through which we can glimpse the divine.
What's powerful about that statement is it suggests that the path to understanding isn't always about intellectual study or complex rituals.
Right.
It can be about encountering individuals who embody certain qualities.
Yeah.
Humility, compassion, selflessness, and recognizing those qualities as reflections of the divine.
So, in a way, Ganeshyam's life, though seemingly ordinary, becomes extraordinary because it points to something beyond itself.
Yes.
It makes us question our own definitions of success and happiness.
And it reminds us that true devotion isn't about outward appearances or grand gestures.
Yeah.
It's about the inner transformation that happens when we shift our focus from self-serving desires to selfless service.
But how do we cultivate that shift in our own lives?
Right.
It's easy to admire Ganeshyam's devotion from afar, but how do we integrate even a fraction of that spirit into our own, often messy realities?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Ganesham's life offers some clues. We can start by focusing on those small acts of service and kindness we talked about earlier.
Right.
Giving up your seat on the bus, helping a colleague with a challenging task, listening with genuine empathy.
Yeah.
When a friend is going through a tough time, these seemingly insignificant actions can be powerful steps towards cultivating a more selfless spirit.
It's about shifting our mindset from what's in it for me to how can I be of service?
Exactly.
And maybe that's the most valuable takeaway from Ganeshyam's story.
Remember that concept of dasa under dasa? It's not just a religious ideal.
Right.
It's a way of being in the world.
Yeah.
Of seeing everyone as worthy of our respect and care, even those who might seem beneath us in social standing or material wealth.
Ganeshyam, with his unwavering dedication to serving his deities and every person who crossed his path, truly embodies this principle. And his story reminds us that this path of selfless service is available to all of us, regardless of our background or beliefs.
So, as we leave you to ponder Ganesham's extraordinary life, we invite you to consider this.
Okay.
How can you cultivate even a spark of his selfless spirit in your own life?
Right.
What simple acts of service can you incorporate into your daily routine?
Yeah.
And how might these acts, even in their smallness, ripple outwards and contribute to a more compassionate and connected world?
Ganeshyam's story is proof that one life lived with purpose and devotion can leave an indelible mark on the world.
Right.
And perhaps by embracing even a fraction of his spirit, we too can become beacons of light.
Yes.
Illuminating the path toward a more loving and meaningful existence.